So actually, when I showed up for the premiere, I actually had just found the perfect Bill Cosby sweater on the way to the performance. Yeah, Bill Cosby used to be a part of my Black History show. Wild times, huh? The first time I stepped onto the stage for OneVoice, a Black History Narrative, was actually February 9th, 2011. It was a 2-night performance at a professional theater, and it happened to be my birthday. The first time, the curtain opens, and there were about 115 people in the audience. And I'd never actually gotten all the way through the material in any one rehearsal. So it was an adventure, for sure. Because, with a one-man show, there's no one else to blame it on.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream.
A corporate buyer had come to the show. He was in the crowd the first night, and he said, our Black History experience had to cancel at the hospital system I work with. And OneVoice was excellent, so we have to have it. Can you be on our campus in 2 weeks? So I showed up and did it. And during the curtain call, a person got up and they said, hey, my church or my husband's office, or hey, JDew, my wife is a principal and they have got to see this. They just got to have your show. I didn't know people would be asking for the show and the content, after that 2-night debut I had lined up. So I just figured I'd go back to working on some other things that I had going on. And the reason I put the show together is because when I had met a few people and sat in their living rooms and they told me the stories that they had over the course of their life, I said, I've got to bring this to other people. More people need to understand and just hear and, unadulterated, long-form version of what is going on in certain people's lives that are even your neighbors and my neighbors. It took me about 18 months to build the show originally, and now it seemed like, every 18 days I was being asked to haul my gear and my clothes off to the next location. And at first, I was kind of worried I wasn't going to be able to get the words straight in my head or remember everything, but now, these pieces are locked up. They're just locked up there for good. The voices in OneVoice were chosen to resemble a timeline in Black history, American history. So we go from tragedy after tragedy, to triumph and some great moments in recent history. So when I pick the voices, I try to resemble the voice and content and even the look. And I want the audience to know that the people, not me, it's not my opinion that I have about them, and you really get to see how these, regular people use their singular voice in their world at that time to impact the world around them for fairness, for equality, and for justice. Now, a major highlight in the work is average, regular, everyday people in these vignettes. And to most of us, especially the students that I might see, the civil rights movement, is something of an ancient time. History, so far gone that they're not relating to the meaning, and I think that falls upon us as well. And when I started meeting them, and they shared with me, some discriminatory story or what they'd lived through in the South or the civil rights acts of the 60s, before those acts were put in place, they just calmly and matter-of-factly spell out how things legally were able to go down, prior to those local laws and ordinances changing and outlawed certain behaviors in public spaces and places.
That if we sat down in the library, we thought we were going to have to go to jail. And he said that's the main part of it. That's what you need to do, is go to jail. If you go to jail, maybe something will come out from this.
All of a sudden, when you request to be served, some of them would just cut the lights off and said, we're closed. Some would just let you sit there. Of course, we were heckled. Protesters instigators would be behind you, calling your name, and sometimes they'd pour stuff on you or do different things. But we decided we would go in, and if we were arrested, we would not come out of jail until they dropped the charges. And the charges generally was criminal trespassing.
You know, I really didn't intend the original show experience to be for children. But honestly, school educators and administrators just keep calling. You know, there's some calls that I've come to expect year after year after year. And there was one time at an experience in North Carolina, a private school, independent school admin came up to me on stage right after the show and said, I mean, JDew, wow. I mean, that's what we're really trying to instill in our students. This just was right on mission. You know, so we've added the experience as well to tailor to primary students. And we call it Sit By Me, where, you know, I talk about Rosa Parks and the Freedom Riders and, you know, what it means to share space and sit next to people and be friends with people that are a little bit different than us. 2020 was the year that changed everything. After 10 years of always being on stage, in person, you know, blood, sweat, and tears that come with that, the world changed forever. And so I took things to the studio. And, you know, after the tragic events of the summer of 2020 and all of us watching what was unfolding in our communities and across America, we created the versatile virtual show experience. And, you know, we're now able to live stream that and get that to people in groups who are not meeting in one place. And, you know, we were very blessed. I showed up in a place with a congressman in the House of Representatives, and he heard about what I was doing, and he said, hold on, why don't we just do this at the Lincoln where it took place? You know, I'm thankful. Actually, you know, I lost count after 50,000 or so people had seen the performance. There's much more opportunity and demand now, even, for sharing these stories. You know, it's not just the voices that we've heard over and over and those iconic characters, but even the local people, your neighbors, my neighbors, who, you know, we add to that vignette library all the time, and we listen to them talk about how things really were at that time for real people and real Americans.
Recently this summer, I added John Lewis. Maybe you saw him over the summer on the news.
So now OneVoice Show can offer different experiences, tailored, you know, 30-minute experience, a 60-minute show, or an hour and a half, you know, full-length kind of feature, in person or live stream. And corporate groups are really diving in with their teams for festivals, DEI training, diversity seminars, and we're really able to foster community conversations in those environments. I look forward to being with a lot more groups, in person or on screen, very soon.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream.
Master is often compelled to sell this class of his slaves out of deference to the feelings of his white wife. And cruel as the deed may strike anyone to be, for a man to sell his own children. Then God smiled, and the light broke, and the darkness rolled up on one side, and the light stood shining on the other. And God said, "That's good." This is the legend of Cassius Clay, the most beautiful fighter in the world today. He talks a great deal and brags indeedy of a muscular punch that's incredible and speedy.
We'll get to the promised land. And so I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.